Hello and welcome to Career Talk with Aditya. This is our first episode on mentorship calls where I'll be connecting with my mentees who are pursuing professional courses or preparing for MBA and help them with my insights and try answering their questions they have for me. Today, on our first session, we have with us Miss Pooja. She's a friend of mine from Pune. She is currently pursuing US CMA certification and being aligned with our IMA members or CMA community. I would love this opportunity to help Pooja with my insight, answer all her questions. And Pooja, before we start, a small introduction about you would help our audience, relate with us. And then we'll start with your questions. Over to you.
Yes, definitely, Aditya. First of all, thank you so much for arranging this Q&A session. So, brief introduction about me is I'm Pooja Soni, and I'm CMA aspirant. I have completed part two of the exam already, and now preparing for part one. I have few doubts, and at the same time, I get queries from many people on my social media handles like Instagram or LinkedIn. So, I have picked a few questions from there as well, which I frequently receive. So, we'll discuss those questions in today's session. So, I hope you will help us with that. Okay, first question I have is regarding scope of CMA job opportunities we will be getting after completion of CMA and what kind of profiles there are available. So,
Okay. Yes, Pooja. One of the frequently asked questions is what is the scope of CMA? So I'll break it down into two attributes. One is geographical scope, that where placements or job opportunities are available for US CMA, and secondly, what are the profiles available for them? To start with geography, the world is the stage for US CMAs. That one big advantage of having a global certification at hand is that you can be employed anywhere where you have opportunities, apt opportunities for these professionals. And US CMAs that are from Indian origin are, I'm proud to say that are currently working in Middle East or even in US, Canada. So world is the stage, there's no restriction, and the concepts are global in nature. When you pursue courses such as maybe Indian CMA or Indian CA, a lot of the concepts rather than the regulations and the rules you learn are subjective to the land or geographical area where a chartered accountant knows how accounting rules and taxation rules are set up as per the Indian context. But being a USCMA, you have that advantage that you can step out with the credential and it's globally accepted. Now, secondly, in terms of job opportunities, role wise or profile wise, again, it's you can literally work in any company out there. Each company has a finance department which is taking decisions for better operations of the business. And one difference you need to understand, a lot of people don't appreciate the difference between just an accountant and management accountant. When we add this word management accountant, it adds a lot of value to the overall credential or value one puts on the table. The one difference being, as an accountant, your primary deliverable is to maintain books, maintain ledgers, comply with accounting, reporting, etc. But when we say management accounting, it's more to do with the decision making. For example, let's consider you are a CFO, chief financial officer of a company. So at this position, you have to take a lot of critical decisions. It could be as simple as if I want to raise capital for my company, how can I do so? Shall I go for an IPO? Shall I, raise capital through equity? Or shall I, go to a bank and get a loan for my company? Or maybe I could go for, preferred share or any other verticals. Secondly, how to manage liquidity of my business. Third would be I need to cut down on my labor. So how to do that? To what extent shall I do that? Finance is heart of any business, and the decision maker within finance department needs to be competent enough to take good decisions. Good decisions result in better performance and profitability measures. Being a management accountant is a critical value you can add to a company. And in context of literally specific roles, FP&A is a role where a lot of CMAs work. FP&A stands for financial planning and analysis, where you have rules such as capital budgeting or estimating what costs are coming in future, making arrangements for them, doing presentations to your senior management saying that, okay, these are the costs you're going to incur. How do you plan to manage that? If you're part of senior management, then after receiving this data, how to manage it? Secondly, you have performance versus expectation analysis. So in this analysis, breaking down attributes that where have we gone wrong? If the variance is huge, how to deduct it? Is it price variance? Is it performance variance? A lot of attributes coming into picture. Even on the second side, let's say capital markets. If you're planning for any merger or acquisition, then what are the attributes you're going to look for? If you want to depend a hostile takeover, how are you going to do that? A lot of concepts are covered in this curriculum. So when it comes to scope, you can literally work in an investment bank as an analyst, in a manufacturing company as a CFO, in cost function, in decision making functions, even in startups where you can do end-to-end finance functions for the company. So yeah, world is the stage, and any industry is an opportunity for a CMA, I would say.
Thank you so much, Aditya, for those insights. So next question is regarding, I mean, this is the most frequently asked question, Indian CMA versus US CMA. So what would you say about that?
Okay, yeah, I know. This debate has been going on for a long time, and there's no way to settle it. I think means both courses have their pros and cons, but it is very subjective that what your priorities are. In terms of cost, Indian CMA is quite affordable if you compare it with US CMA. But on contrary, if we consider time as an investment, then of course Indian CMA is way expensive. On contrary, US CMA is something that you can complete in an year also, depends on how much input you have, how much study or efforts you can put in. But it can be completed within an year. On contrary, Indian CMA takes like 3 to 5 years. That's on average. You can go beyond that. Secondly, on the US CMA part, you don't need an apprenticeship or articleship. You can directly, after you graduate, work with a company that has relevant profile or relevant work experience. And after 2 years, you are a CMA. You earn that degree. But it comes down to the objective of setting the course. I think that's one way you can differentiate it. When Indian courses were set in context, the objective was, or the target audience was, people getting out of school. I mean, after 11th or even after 12th, people were allowed to pursue CA, CS, CMA in Indian context. So that's why their curriculum is set right from the base, where simple aptitude level exams or even simple concepts are covered right from the base. So that is one main reason why you have so many levels, so many exams, and again a separate articleship to see that you are competent for the role. On contrary, if you talk about most of the US courses, they assume that, or there's a requirement that you complete graduation along with this course. So this course will act as a specialization, being a specialized or SME in that specific vertical. Then you go out in the industry and get real experience, not some articleship or apprentice experience. It is a real experience, even on the articleship side. But when you're a full-time employee giving your 100%, the learning curve is quite steep. And once you complete this requirement, you earn the CMA credential and you are competent enough. So yeah, more of specialization and industry integration on the US CMA side. On contrary, you have Indian legacy, you have huge alumni network in India, and it's monetary-wise affordable as well. So it's your subjective pick which you want. Me being inclined on the US CMA is of course having that bias naturally, but it's up to you to take a neutral and your own subjective decision.
Thank you, Aditya, for answering this question. So next one is regarding material we need to refer for CMA exams. So what is your suggestion regarding it?
Okay. Yes, Pooja, one of again frequently asked questions, and this is something I've covered in my videos as well. Each author has its own way of putting down things. So there will be pro and cons, and again of each author. I had referred Wiley and Hawk during my preparations. Frankly speaking, I love both. One recommendation would be, if you're a starter, look for a publisher or a prep provider who is covering concepts from very base. So let's say you're in student phase, look for prep provider or again a publisher who has concepts explained right from the base, right from the origin, and secondly, who has a lot of solved examples, offered in their own curriculum. On contrary, if you're someone who has completed BCom or someone like me who had some background in finance, who had worked in finance, you can refer to maybe publisher who has put down things pro sense, who has just given a summary, a quick brisk or a short and sweet crisp notes in a chapter. They can refer the same, revise, learn whatever is necessary, and move on to the next concept. So again, it's main to do with how you optimize it if you want to, and then you can choose for your own self. One recommendation would be go on the IMA website. There are IMA approved prep providers. So when it's approved by IMA, we are confident to assume that there's some quality check going in from their side. So they are reliable. I have been, following the same, and I was happy with all the IMA approved prep providers. So that is one reference portal you can go to that would help.
Yes, Aditya. Even I remember referring to support package for my part two exam. So yes, that was really beneficial for me. So the last question as I have is actually, as I mentioned earlier, that I'm preparing for part one of the exam, and hardly there are 15 days remaining for my exam. So what would you suggest? Like, what should be my study pattern, or how much questions should I be solving for a particular day?
Valid question, Pooja. In each phase, your way of preparing for the exam should change. Before jumping down to the last phase, you are in the last phase of preparation. But before jumping down directly to the last phase, maybe I'll give a glimpse of initial and middle phase as well, because this video will be released on YouTube and will address a larger audience. So initial phase, again, that can range from a month to maybe 3 to 4 months. In this range, your emphasis should be on learning. So, go through the textbooks, go through LOS, critical element, refer the LOS released by IMA. LOS stands for Learning Objective Statement, and make sure that you are able to answer all the statements, within the LOS. Secondly, make sure that you know all the concepts thoroughly from the curriculum. Let's say you are referring to Wiley Hawk or any other publisher. Make sure you have noted all the important or marked all the important concepts and you know it well to answer the questions. In the second phase, which ranges maybe again around from a month or a couple of 2 or 3 months, in this phase, your emphasis should be on solving MCQs, maybe 50 to 80 MCQs every day, and not just solving them, but revising before you start solving and analyzing your mistakes after solving. Once you are done with analyzing your mistakes, then only you can say that you have practiced those MCQs. One critical element or secret to passing professional exams is that you never repeat your mistakes. Okay, once you have committed a mistake, learn from it. First of all, analyze the mistake, see why have you made that mistake. One way is you have partial understanding of the concept, or you have total, zero understanding of the concept. In this way, you need to go back and refer to the concept again, learn what's going wrong, or where are you confused. Second reason could be maybe some calculation mistake. Then just note it down. This is how it's done, or this is the way it is solved, and then move on to next question. But analyzing your mistakes is very important. And once you're done with this phase, let's say your accuracy goes above 75% or above 80%, then I would suggest that you move down to the last phase. And in the last phase, your accuracy should be, to be safe, should be more than 80 or 85%. And this accuracy should be consistent. Let's say you are scoring above 85% in a couple of mocks, and then suddenly for next 2 or 3 mocks, you come down or come below 60% in terms of accuracy, then it's a red signal. It means that there are some gaps in your understanding and you need to go back and revise. So your revision should never stop, especially during last two phases. And coming down to your specific question now, last 20 days, I'll share that what I did during my last 20 days. I solved around 5 to 7 mocks, and I made sure that my accuracy is well maintained. Secondly, I always revise concepts thoroughly during this phase again. I had my own notes written down, so I was going through the same. Lastly, what I had done was solving support package. I had solved support package twice before going to the exam, and that's one unique style I carry around support package management, I would say, is using the star system. There are usually 3 types of questions, and you mark it them to optimize your time. This is something I learned from my professor. So there are 3 types of question. One is easy, second is moderate, and third one is difficult. So easy questions are something where you shouldn't solve more than once, or shouldn't give so much time, because investment to return is not that great. You know it how to solve it. But in terms of moderate and difficult, you should solve them twice or thrice, because you are investing well and you get better returns. If similar question shows up in the exam, you are in a comfortable zone to solve them because you have practiced it multiple times. So that's how you optimize, that's how you analyze, and that's how you go about it. So to break it down, solve 5 to 7 mock exams, analyze your mistakes, revise your curriculum, and be ready for the exam. I would also suggest that 24 hours before your exam, stop studying, chill, relax. It's very important that you are stress-free during your exam day, exam window, and that will help you, perform in a better way. Know that you are well prepared for the exam and go for it. All the best, and it's 20 days to go. Prepare well. All the best.
Yes, thank you so much, Aditya. Thanks a lot for all those tricks and tips. I definitely keep them in my mind while giving exam, while doing my preparation. And thank you very much for answering all my questions in very detailed. So thank you so much for the session. It was really helpful.
My pleasure. Thank you. So yeah, thank you for today's session. Those who are watching this on YouTube, thank you guys. All the best for your exams as well. I hope this session helps you. Let me know if you want me to release more such sessions with my mentees. I am having these sessions regularly, maybe bi-weekly or in a monthly session, and we discuss various topics ranging from professional certification preparation, mentorship, preparing for MBA exams, how to invest, how to make a career in finance, etc. So any specific topic you want me to cover in such sessions and release on YouTube, please comment. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Those who haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to like the video. See you in the next one. Thank you.
Thank you, Aditya, once again. Bye bye.